Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're going to be trying to tackle a solo queue tier list for the most recent Trevenant release patch. Lots of balance changes, new Pokemon added, and we're going to be doing it slightly different. I'm on my large tier list template that I made. I don't always use all of it, so it is what it is. They're just letters, it doesn't matter. But we're going to be doing it by the battle type, I think. So let's go ahead and jump into it, starting with Dragonite. Now, Dragonite has actually fallen, I'd say, decently from grace. Its S tier position is no longer upheld. The nerfs to the 50% like minimum usage on the ult rate when you use it, the nerfs to its attack range, ironically make fighting with this character and trying to flip every objective and secure with it kind of hard. Now the character's still solid, it still has high secure and does some pretty decent damage, but I think its S tier position has now fallen to like a formidable A tier. It really doesn't quite do the exact same thing that it used to, but it is still a very solid pick, and you don't want to count that out. So still really, really great for solo queue. As for Lucario, even if you nerf this character, it somehow finds its way into the S tier, buffed up some kind of how. I don't know. And actually, I think for the structure really quickly, I'm going to shove Dragonite down to B+, and I'll explain why in a second. But Lucario, buffed up, it always does crazy damage. Close combat is insane. This character is great in lane. This character can jungle if you want to get ahead and jungle with it. It's honestly really, really solid, really, really crazy. Garchomp has found its way into the meta to some degree. It's buffed up, it's stronger, it's happier, it's doing dragon things. The ground build's still better than it was, but I don't think it's that impactful. I think the dragon build is just always going to be better, and I think this is a solid A tier pick. As far as laning goes, it's pretty decent. I think laning Garchomp is probably better in 5 stacks. In solo, duo queue, that kind of feel, it's not bad. But you have a little bit more contesting for farm, like say if you're taking it in the top lane and having to fight over things. So maybe not as great, but really, really solid pick. This leads me to Charizard. And the reason why I wanted to shove the Dragonite down a little bit, because I'm building this kind of hierarchy for the all-rounders. I think Charizard is A+, almost S tier. The jungle of this character is really, really strong. The buffs, the mobility, the damage this character can bring is really, really good. The quality of life it got from being able to cast its moves on the go, and the combination of having slow smoke in the meta if you're using slow smoke, or a buffed attack, X attack, either which way you want to run it, even if you're just running full heal just so you can get your, not get CC'd and guarantee that you get your Unite off. Sorry, I'm still sick. Charizard feels great. Charizard is great. And then there's Serena. Oh, Serena, how you fallen from grace as well. Now, here's the thing. I actually think that Serena is the worst all-rounder in the game right now. Yep, I do. I don't think it's so much worse than Dragonite, but honestly, these two characters are just not as great as they used to be. They were both S tier picks, and it was mostly just because the hard secure, but the nerfs that they gave to this makes the hard secure not as impactful. Still pretty solid in solo queue because you can flip things, but fighting with this character is actually much harder. As for Serena, she just doesn't do what she used to do, where she could just rip through and shred everything. I think solo queue wise, it's not that bad. Solo queue wise, it's really not that bad, but I think that out of the all-rounder category, there are just better picks than Serena right now, and that's just kind of how I'm feeling about it. As for Machamp, I think Machamp is kind of in a Garchomp position, like has seen some good buffs, can lane a lot better with the buffs to Machop, with Karate Chop being able to execute a little bit more, secure some farm, and yeah, it feels pretty good. Machamp has always been pretty close to meta. Sorry again. Machamp has always been pretty close to meta, but it just fell a little bit short. I think that these changes are pulling it up a decent amount, and that's kind of what I'm thinking for the all-rounders. Yeah, so let me know what you think for sure in terms of the all-rounders. All right, Sylveon, let's move into the attackers. Sylveon has consistently been solid. I think is a very good, just A-tier pick. You can take this character in lane, obviously. You can play Hyper Voice, Mystical Fire for solo queue. I'd say either one's is pretty good. Hyper Voice probably a little bit better. It does really good damage. Shreds is a unique SP attacker, and one of the few SP attackers in this game that I think are actually viable, like to a good degree. Sylveon is solid, best I can say. As for Ninetales, Ninetales, I don't know. It's like the character's not useless. The character brings a pretty strong laning phase, but it doesn't feel like super strong, right? It doesn't feel super strong. It just feels strong. I don't know. It feels good. It feels like, yeah, you can get the job done. The Unite move's not great. The character doesn't scale. It doesn't have a ton of mobility or self-sufficiency. Doesn't burst enough, I don't think, or have Unite up enough for it to be justified as a pick over other characters. So, unfortunate. Greninja. I think Greninja is... Oh, man, I want to put it either A or A+. I think Greninja is probably A+ for solo queue. The reason why is you take this character in the jungle, you have so much carry potential. I actually think that ranged characters like Greninja, Cinderace have gotten kind of an indirect buff because of Slow Smoke, in a way, because there's just more people being stuck, more people getting CC'd, and more reason to kite and play from range. So Greninja solo queue, I think, feels really, really solid. Great jungler. Not a very solid laner, but really, really good jungler. Cramorant is basically another Ninetales situation. Like, Cram is good, like really good early laning phase, really solid damage potential, but then just slowly starts to fall off. It's not useless by any means, but it's just not what it used to be. Can't really get done what it used to get done, and ultimately just doesn't feel that great. Cinderace. I think Cinderace is maybe reclaiming its spot as like the jungle S tier meta, maybe. This character is so hyper carry potential. I think that solo queue wise, I personally prefer Greninja more because I can do a lot with it. But if you get fed on Cinderace, like if there's a fed Cinderace in your game, there's like almost nothing anyone can do about it. The character is insane. High mobility with Blaze Kick, Flame Charge, crazy Unite move, insane kiting potential, long attack range. Slow Smoke's in the meta, so it's good for kiting against that. If your teammates have Slow Smoke, it's good for playing into that. Great jungler, great clear, a phenomenal character. All right, Pikachu. Super, super solid. I usually tend to knock this character down in solo queue tier list, but I've been playing it more. I've been playing it more and more, and I think I needed to give it more respect. I think the last time I put it somewhere like A or B tier, like in this area, I need to give it more respect as a solo queue pick. It is actually just incredibly bursty. The thing that I want for Cram Ninetales is what Pikachu has, right? Like, yeah, it doesn't have a ton of mobility or anything, but it has crazy burst and a Unite move that you can spam, and we can't pretend like that's not something important. Pikachu is pretty insane. Pretty insane, Pikachu is. Venusaur. Venusaur feels like the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of SP attackers. It's highly mobile. It's basically like an SP attacker all-rounder. You're running around all crazy. You're healing. You're doing a ton of damage. You get to level 13, you get this major power spike. This character is really, really strong for solo queue. I think I used to put it in S tier. I think I'm kind of restructuring a little bit on that. Not because it got any worse, really. It's just the meta's changing. Maybe Slow Smoke, we can say, attributes a little bit to that. But yeah, Venusaur, incredibly solid. Incredibly solid pick. Gardevoir. You know, Gardevoir got some shadow buffs. Haven't really covered it. Thought about making a video on it. I think Gardevoir is incredibly solid. Can jungle well. You know, not the best pick out there. Future Sight is now like kind of like shadow buff. Like I said, the original version of Future Sight has some cooldown reduction on it. The upgraded version is that full reset. Gardevoir feels pretty good, but kind of has that same issue with Cram Ninetales where you're not super self-sufficient, but it does have the high burst. It's not quite on this level, I don't think, with Pikachu, but it brings some high burst, has a great Unite move. I think it's a solid pick. Solid pick. And then there's Decidueye, which, you know, it's like the character, I don't know what to do with this character. I think this character is like one of the bottom three. It's somewhere here. I may bump it down, but Decidueye, it can bring a lot of damage, but you're just so easy to deal with. You're so incredibly diveable, and I just don't really know if I see it being something that's like worth picking most of the time, in my opinion. I don't think it's worth picking most of the time. All right, let's jump into the defender role. Mamoswine. I think Mamoswine feels really solid. Like really, really good. I don't know if I think in solo queue, if it's A+ or A tier. I think it might be A tier. It's really good. There might just be slightly better tanks in it, which I know there are, but we'll get to that. I may shift this one up a tier, but Mamoswine's solid. Laning phase early is really, really good. It starts to fall off a little bit. Doesn't have the best Unite move in the world, but with Slow Smoke added, you run it with Mamoswine, even if you're still running Eject Button, like the character is pretty obnoxious in the lane and can really get the game going, and doesn't scale terribly. It doesn't have the best Unite move in the world, but it doesn't scale terribly. Can get a lot of work done. I think Mamoswine is a phenomenal choice. Unfortunately for Crustal, I think Crustal is really bad right now. The character was kind of this like highly mobile tank that like would run around and score a whole lot, but they nerfed like the healing on scoring, so that's a little bit more punishable. The character doesn't really feel like a tank, but it also doesn't do like a ton of crazy damage or anything. Crustal's just been getting kind of power crept, left in the dust. I don't really know what they should do for this character. I'll have to think on that, and maybe I can make a video talking about like how I would rework or buff Crustal. But I think that this character is just a little bit left in the dust, unfortunately. A little bit left in the dust. Greedent, however, leaves people in the dust. The Jungle Invade meta, so obnoxious, so annoying. Jungle invading is crazy. This character, whether it doesn't matter how you play it, honestly, this character's good. It's annoying, it's obnoxious, it heals a ton, it does good damage. It's not really a tank, but it kind of is. It's weird, it's creepy, it's a fat squirrel that I love, and I think it's really, really solid for solo queue. A+ for sure. Great in lane, great at jungle invading, all the fun things. Snorlax. Yeah, Snorlax is great. Snorlax is great. I think that Snorlax is probably A+ defender. You know, I'm thinking about the strength of the characters and not just the fact that I'm talking about solo queue, right? Like I think like in the past, maybe I've probably put some of these characters lower because you just have to rely on teammates, but the character is strong. I want to make sure that the tier list is reflecting that, and maybe I kind of missed the mark on that in the past. But Snorlax is a great defender. If you're playing it solo, you need teammates, sure, but it's not that the character's bad. The character's incredible. You can jump in, use your block. I don't really recommend Flail-Lax or, you know, Yawn, but really, really solid character. Really good in the early lane with tackle to secure farm with the boosted auto, and it's just a phenomenal character. That said, so is Slowbro. I actually think that the A tier or A+ tier is pretty stacked. I'm putting a little bit more defenders in it than I think I've done in the past. I probably put things much lower. Slowbro was like not very good at one point and then has gotten better. I think that this character is so tanky and can do so much. Again, I want to show a little bit more love and respect to supports and tanks on the solo queue tier list, because yeah, you need to carry your games, but at the same time, these characters, if you have good teammates, can help you do that. And I don't want to just blame the matchmaking for my tier list positions. So Slowbro, incredible tank, I think. But there's just better picks for solo carrying. So I think I'll say that as the disclaimer as to why I'm shifting around how I put tanks on the list. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. So now we have this tree. Now we have this tree, bro. I don't know, man. Listen, it's a bottom tier character. I don't think it's great. I think it's like bottom 5, bottom 6 characters in the game. Maybe. It really is just not very good. If you can look at like boom, 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 these characters are like some of the worst characters in the game. Trevenant, everything it does, another tank could just do better, minus healing itself, I guess, but they're just tankier. It doesn't bring too much CC to the table. The Unite move's pretty good, and yeah, Hornleech is pretty good, but this character's just not very great, unfortunately. So I can't really get that excited about it. It just doesn't feel like it does a ton, and I can still win with it. Sure, yeah, it's still, you know, you can win with it, but I don't know. It's just not the best, not in the best position if you ask me. And then there's Blastoise, and Blastoise is solid for solo queue. Probably better for solo queue than it'll ever be in 5 stacks, because you can actually just run in and do a bunch of damage, and people aren't good at responding to it, and brings a good amount of CC. The laning phase is so tough for Blastoise, so that's really the big issue with the character. But I don't know. One thing I've always said about Blastoise is like I always see Squirtles get stuck at level 4. It's just like the staple of this character. I don't know what it is, but when you break through, if you are doing good, then they're doing really well. You can bring a lot of damage to the table. Let's move on to speedsters. Talonflame. I think Talonflame is probably getting kind of cut down a notch. I think it's still solid for solo queue, but there's just way better junglers right now. And You know, Fly got nerfed. I think Brave Bird Aerial Ace feels really, really solid. But I think that speedsters in general right now are just not in the best position. Slow Smoke definitely doesn't help that whole like idea of being a speedster wanting to get in and do a bunch of damage as a squishy. So speedsters are all kind of a little down bad right now. But yeah, Talon's still really solid, but I'm pulling it down a tier for my last one. It felt like an amazing solo queue pick, and now it just feels like an okay solo queue pick, a pretty good solo queue pick, I'll say. If you're a Talon connoisseur, you're going to be just fine. But I definitely do think that maybe some of the all-rounders are actually better picks because they're a little bit more durable and they can still do a ton of damage. Gengar, unfortunately, I still think that Gengar, and this is probably a controversial take, but it's like the mix between being a speedster and being Gengar, even with the buffs. I just don't think this character like ever gets anything done. I think that this Gengar and maybe like, I think these three characters are probably bottom 3. And then like these characters right here are bottom 6. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. I definitely was a little too harsh on Trevenant. Like, he wasn't the worst character in the game, but it was an over exaggeration. That said, Gengar feels tough, and it could be something like this, right? Like, this would be something that one of y'all do. This might be something one of y'all do. I don't think it matters. My point is that these characters are not very good. My point is that these characters are not very good. However you structure these, if you put it up here, whatever, it doesn't feel great. It does not feel very good. So there's that. Yeah, I don't know. There's that. As for Zeraora, I think... Wait, that's Absol. Go away as Absol. As for Zeraora, I think Zeraora is still strong. It's weird. The thing is that this character just doesn't get its Unite move. They said they fixed the passive bug, but I swear it's still happening. So maybe the character is still really strong because it has its passive bug. I don't know. I really, like, my opinion of Zeraora has been weird for like months now. The character feels like it can get the job done, but there's way better picks in a lot of situations. I don't really recommend playing a ton of Zeraora, but it's an okay pick. It is what it is. And for solo queue specifically, I think Absol will still be a pretty decent pick for speedsters. I think I also had this pick a little higher up on the last tier list, but things have changed, man. I think all-rounders are just gapping speedsters as jungler picks right now, mostly. So I think I'm pulling this one down, if I remember. I think I had Absol pretty high for solo queue, because honestly, for solo queue, Absol gets some serious work done. But I'm pulling it down a little bit. All right, let's jump into the supporters. Mr. Mime, insane for solo queue. I really do think that this character is nuts. It could be like an S tier solo queue pick, but I almost want to pull it down even now. I don't know. It could be really strong for solo queue. It is strong for solo queue because you bring damage. I think it's fallen a little bit down in the 5-stack meta, and we've seen that in tournaments already because of Slow Smoke, because there's just better options, I suppose. But in solo queue, I think it's going to hold a nice A+ position. You can still bully the hell out of people. Not everybody in solo queue is running, tri-lane with slow smokes. Not everybody's doing all that crazy stuff. So Mr. Mime's kind of holding its strong position for solo queue. I would probably pull it down maybe a tier. Yeah, I don't know. It's in a fine spot here. I'm comfortable with it. All right, let's look at Eldegoss. Honestly, I'm still putting Eldegoss in S tier because Eldegoss is an S tier pick. I am undeniable in my opinion. I think the character has great potential to carry games just because you're supporting so much. Amazing Unite move for stealing. Leaf Tornado sometimes is good for stealing. You just bring so much to the team by playing this character. You're not solo carrying, but I'm trying to shift my tier list away from the idea of solo carrying and more into what is actually good if you're just playing it solo. And these characters are good. Yeah, it's hard to win solo as a tank and as a support, but these characters are good, and Eldegoss is that good. For sure that good. As for Blissey, unfortunately, Blissey is not the best to play in solo queue. And it's not that the character's not good. I think it's the only other healer. It's just that this character is entirely team reliant, and it's not the best in the laning phase. It gets the job done okay, but Eldegoss is just better on every front. You can throw a muscle band on Eldegoss. Basically, anything Eldegoss can do, or anything Blissey can do, Eldegoss can do better with more damage. So yeah, let's just play Eldegoss instead. And then Wigglytuff. I'm not gonna lie. Again, this is another one of those. Wigglytuff is an S tier character. I have to put Wiggly in S tier. You have to have good teammates, yes, You have to have them grouped in the late game, yes, but when they are, and when you are Wiggly, you are going to make a big impact on the game, and I think that that's important. So, characters crazy in lane, Slow Smoke is crazy on these two characters, Eldegoss and Wiggly, and that's my tier list. Yeah. I think the last few times I haven't used the D tier, but I don't feel the need to separate it too much. I probably could, but this feels pretty appropriate to me. Lots of changes. Like I said, I want to shift my list away from just solo carrying and more about what's good, you know, what's actually good. And this is what I'm thinking. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Yeah, it feels weird to put Zeraora so low, but honestly, I just think that it's not the best speedster in the world. It could maybe sit a little bit higher because of its potential to lane, but again, at that point, honestly, just pick something that's just good in lane. And even then, like something like Machamp might just be better in lane. I don't even know. Like it's just Machamp and Garchomp feel good right now. And the viability of what you can run in solo queue is much higher than that of 5 stacking. So why take something that gets its Unite move at 10? Why? I don't know. Personally, I don't know. But this is feeling good. I think if you're picking A+ tier or A tier up, you're going to be really solid. I would probably avoid maybe B+ and down. I think Dragonite, Serena are okay for solo queue. And honestly, it feels weird to have these characters like below Blissey, but that's just my carrying and the carry potential in my mind. But yeah, this is how I'm feeling. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I definitely do appreciate it. Drop a like on the video and subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Pokemon Unite content. As always, friends, be sure to be kind to one another. Tell someone that you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.